right, welcome to the January 2025 edition of the Patch Tuesday Support Group, a safe place to come and talk about patching and cry into our beers or beverages of your choice. You will see that Jordan is not with us today, nor is his second in command, Kerry. So I believe Jake's going to pinch hit
the
for the
sixth guy is
security,
here. Yeah,
the security information. We have Andrew is on the line, checking chat. He's going to interrupt us with any particularly prescient questions that need to be asked. And then we're also joined by a very new Patch My PC hire, Morris. You know, here's the thing, Morris. I've known you for what, 5-6 years, and I finally know that to pronounce Morris. But how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Daly? Dolly?
Daily, yeah.
Daily. Okay.
Yeah,
so there's
it was only
there's
the
a
pretend
silent
there's an I in there, Brian.
Yeah, there's a silent I that doesn't exist. Okay.
Well, you've probably seen those videos on YouTube of the English language where it's just how to pronounce words, right? So it's kind of like that.
Aluminum, aluminium, like
my wife is an English as a second language teacher, so yes, I get to hear this all the time. She's like, you try to explain the rules, but then you have to explain every exception to the rule, which are arbitrary and capricious. So all right, I've always heard it daily, but I was like, is it really? There's no I there. So I'm glad that we have finally resolved that. So Jake's gonna give us a security rundown. I'll go through some news or some kind of fun stuff in there, and then Morris is gonna do his thing. That's the general plan. So with that, I hand it over to you, Jake. Show us those beautiful graphs.
Yeah, let me pull up this wonderful Power BI report that Jordan has so graciously created for us, and we'll go over the weather report. All right, so for January, it looks like we're sitting at a total number of 42 KBs. There's 145 vulnerabilities, which is a pretty significant increase from last month, only having 67. So we're off to a great start this year. Other than that, we're going to pop over to the patch my, well, let's also cover important, critical, and moderate too, because that's also kind of important. Important, 51. So 52% of those are important KBs. Only 42 being critical, still a large amount, and then moderate only being 5. So definitely start rolling your patches out this month. On the Patch My PC side of things, we have had 977 total unique updates. 12 from Chrome, 11 from Edge, 12 from Firefox, and 10 from Opera. There were 33 unique vulnerabilities. I know we talked about vulnerability depth last time. Again,
I still say it's made up.
I still say it's Jordan was in the chat. Brian, I don't know if you remember. Do you?
I remember him making up something that made no sense.
He made up something that I don't think any of us understood. It went like through this year, out the other. But I'm sure we'll have a description for that in the chat at some point again. Now, as far as like things that maybe you should be taking, extra look at, let me grab 3 specific KBs. Let me find the screen that I want to share out here. Share. Beautiful. So there are 3 in this, specifically CVE 2025 21333, 334, and 335. These, again, super critical ones that you want to start getting patches out for. Basically, this is just a simple memory hack that will give you system level access.
Buffer overflows.
Exactly.
Love buffer overflows.
You've got to love it. I believe both. Well, there's 2 that are used after free, and then the one being buffer overflow. But all RAM, memory-based hacks. There are patches available for all 3 of those. I will link the KBs down in the chat here as well. But other than that, that's the patch report this month.
All right.
Short and sweet.
Thank you there. Short and something. Let's see.
I'll take that as a compliment, Brian.
Let's see if I can use a computer here, which I probably can't. All right. So let's talk about some fun and exciting news. First off, let's talk about there is some relevant stuff for this patch cycle. If you don't already, go to the Patch Tuesday mega thread. Like you should go there. Josh Taco, our guinea pig and sacrificial lamb, always goes through and literally just YOLOs it out to 11,000 PCs and servers, literally the very day of. And so anecdotal evidence that the System Guard Runtime Monitor Broker Service, which is like a Defender subsystem, might not start back up after this month's patches. Supposedly that's by brief my brief research suggests that it's actually not supposed to be used, so maybe that's not a huge problem. But just be aware of it, and maybe track that and see if that's happening in your environment, and if so, whether that's going to be a problem. So the Windows Update team got nostalgic for, hey, remember when we used to release servicing stack updates and then we make them immediately, make them required for that month's cumulative update, so you have to like install in 2 cycles? Like, those were good times. What if we just, man, we should do that again. So I'm here to tell you that's what they did. Now, luckily, this is only for Windows Server 2016 and Windows 10 LTSB 1607. So I'm hoping that that last section, your Windows 10 1607 LTSB, is hopefully pretty minimal. But if you have Server 2016, they will absolutely need to kind of have 2 rounds of patches. One to install the servicing stack update, and then they'll have to go ahead and scan again. And so they will detect this January's cumulative update as applicable and go ahead and install that. The servicing stack update usually doesn't require a reboot, so that's kind of safe. You might, if you need, you might go and do like a one-off deployment of that ahead of your cumulative update. That's what I've seen people do in the past, but just be aware that we are, after years of not having to worry about that, we are right back at it. So let's get into some fun security stuff. So Meta, which is Facebook, was fined over $250,000 for a security breach in 2018. So, you know, the wheels of justice grind slowly. So 6 years ago, there was the data breach, and they're getting fined for it. And I'm sure the people that were impacted will see none of that money. So what a fun story. CISA, this is our cybersecurity and infrastructure security agents here in the USA. They recently released best practice guide for mobile communications. What's most interesting here is they suggest the consistent use of end-to-end encryption. If you've been following us for the last couple of months, our government is sort of well known for having 3-letter agencies that have wiretaps basically built in, and then China went and hacked those wiretaps. And there's been, in our country, at least there's been this long discussion of, well, we shouldn't have end-to-end encryption because our government needs to be able to get in and read this stuff. And here's the government saying, yeah, you should really have end-to-end encryption that we can't break. So that's just exactly right. That's just chuckle worthy at this point. But like, yeah, sorry, the backdoors we built, they got backdoored. Maybe that's a problem. So if you want to be secure, you should, you know, do encryption. So that's kind of fun. If you are a user of Beyond Trust, specifically the remote support SaaS service, you have some things to be aware of. That kind of got hacksorted, and it was quite critical. It was a 9.8 with a remote code execution, so kind of scary stuff there. They sort of said, hey, don't worry, there's, you know, only this takes a specific configuration, and you know, a very small number of clients are going to get impacted by this. Well, guess who was? The U.S. Treasury. So don't worry, the U.S. Treasury was itself hacksorted by the Beyond Trust remote support software. So it's a SaaS product, so it has already been fixed. There's nothing for you to do, but maybe if you are a said user, you might want to do some additional seeking out to see if you were impacted by that. Man, these keep coming up. SOFOS Firewall really feels familiar from previous months, but they too had a SQL injection that could lead to a remote execution. Again, it's kind of like Beyond Trust. They report that, hey, it takes a specific configuration for this to be vulnerable, and less than 0.5% of devices, SOFOS firewalls, were actually vulnerable. But it's worth checking out if you use their equipment. If you use Tomcat, and you probably do, many of you do, knowingly or unknowingly, there was a vulnerability a while ago in Tomcat that they thought they fixed and then found out that they didn't. So it's a race condition that could lead to remote code execution on case-insensitive file systems with a specific configuration. So it's a little bespoke, but or what I mean, like there's a very specific situation in which you would be vulnerable. But if you're running anything that uses Apache Tomcat, and that is a lot of things, I would go ahead and take a look at this and dive a little deeper, even with, so there's a new version of Tomcat that fixes the issue, but if you have some older versions of Tomcats, there's some workarounds they want you to go ahead and you would still need to apply. This is a fun one, browser extension compromise. So this, what happened, now here we're talking about Cyberhaven, which is a data prevention loss provider. So they're kind of touted as cybersecurity, but Cyberhaven was not the only one. The researchers that dug into this later found, ooh, yeah, there's a bunch of other browser extensions that were compromised. Now, I want to be clear here. This isn't like, hey, we created a faux browser extension and we're trying to get people to install it. This is literally they were able to compromise Cyberhaven's account that they use to upload their browser extension, and they use that to upload their own browser extension. The Chrome Web Store admin account. So their admin account was compromised, and that allowed the attackers to upload their own browser extension, which is super fun. Apple paid $95 million to settle a lawsuit accused of Siri eavesdropping. This is one of those long-running things. I think, again, just like the earlier one with Meta, I think it was years and years ago, where there's a class action lawsuit about the fact that, it appears that Siri might be listening to us all of the time and recording all of that stuff. And some of the data got released. And again, the wheels of justice grind slowly. And Apple is going to pay $95 million. Again, probably not actually going to, none of the people that were impacted by this will probably see that money, but you look at Apple, you're like, $95 million? Is that a slap on the wrist? I don't know. Seems like a lot of money. I could do something with 95 million, like
a couple things, right?
Yeah, like watch Morris run a F1 team for half a year or something. I don't know.
Yes,
I think more than half a year.
I have no idea. No, I'm pretty sure F1.
What I got out of that is that if you had $95 million, you would invest a very, very small amount into Morris. But
if you were using Tenable, and specific Tenable is, I think, most well known for their Nessus software, which is a secure vulnerability scanning software. They released a plugin update that went ahead and crashed that agent. Now that, hopefully all of us, that sounds slightly familiar. This is literally CrowdStrike. And this, when that CrowdStrike happened, this was the thing we talked about. And so that's why I want to highlight this one. CrowdStrike did what a lot of other people do. They just really got screwed over by the impact of it, because this is the same thing, right? They released a plugin, it was supposed to be fine, and it wasn't fine. The impact here is only, well, they're taking their own agent out. They're not taking the whole system, but it's the same process that got them there. So it'll be interesting to, I haven't dug into this to see, like CrowdStrike and all other AV, or I shouldn't say all, many AV vendors before, if they will realize that it's time to do allow their customers to do a staged rollout. So this is hammering once again, patching is hard. And if you don't do a staged rollout, that can come and bite you. And you might have some vendors like Tenable and CrowdStrike before it. And before CrowdStrike, it was Defender itself that, they don't have rings for you to test. That's just a bad day waiting to happen. Okay, I just know what I'm saying. The White House, this is really worth a read, because I just don't know how to take this with a safe, with a straight face. Launches U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, providing Americans easily receive connected devices are cyber secure. This seems just laughable. I don't know how you put a sticker on something and say it's cyber secure.
That sticker's probably going to be invalid next week,
That's what I mean. Like, it just, this, like, I don't know.
Removal of this sticker voids your warranty.
I mean, like, part of me kind of gets it. It's like, okay, at least they, an effort was being made, right? George's not here, but he would tell you about like SOC and all sorts of other kind of evaluations you have. And it's like, it's making sure you're doing best practices, but being SOC 2 or whatever is compliant doesn't mean you're unhackable. It just means, you've been evaluated, and any issues have been noted, and sometimes you mitigate them, sometimes you don't. And it's just an evaluation. It's not really it's not a seal of approval, and this kind of just laughably sounds like a seal of approval.
If I don't see those stickers on my bananas at the grocery store, I'm going to be really upset.
But I do feel like we should be getting stickers for the next conference, like patched by Patch My PC. Just stick it on every machine, you're fine.
US Cyber PMPC trust mark. I got it. I'm with you. We got to. Somebody go ahead and find these stickers, and we will totally.
Corey, write that down.
Yeah, this is. I love your swag idea. Avanti, again, we always hate to see it. We really hate to see it. Their Connect Secure and Policy Secure products have a 0-day in it. So if you're using any of those products, you are going to want to go ahead and update that stuff to Suite. Here's a nice rundown by Mandiant, which is like Google's 0-day research team. And is there impact? Yeah, totally impact. So the registry, the Internet Domain Registry for everything that ends in .uk, who is called Nominet, I believe. Yeah, they got hit by that. So we don't know. I don't have the full details of what that means, but that's fun. That's nice to see. Speaking of CrowdStrike, if you have recently gotten a job offer from them, I have good news and bad news. There's actually no good news. The bad news is they're trying to. That was probably a phishing scam to get you to install a crypto miner. So if that sounds at all familiar, you should definitely go ahead and read this and have your machine checked out, because it's probably not a good day for you. Microsoft, speaking of, we were talking about Google just a second ago, looking for 0 days and other people's stuff. Apparently Microsoft likes to do that for Mac OS. And they recently found one. So there was a rootkit vulnerability in Mac OS, and that has been patched by Apple in Sequoia 15.2. So if you are using, if you're on Sequoia, an earlier version, go ahead and make sure you get updated, get those updates out quickly. You would kind of think, or going back to the CrowdStrike thing, right? This was access to the kernel was kind of a big point of discussion, and like, hey, this can't happen on Mac OS. And this is kind of along those lines. They could get a rootkit and they could install their own, I believe, a malicious driver that's at the kernel level. I think that's that's the root of this vulnerability. But again, there's a patch available. Go ahead and get that out there. The FBI deletes Chinese plugx malware from thousands of US computers. So basically, this actually seems like a very simple kind of malware that got installed, and it literally has like a run once key that gets started, or run, a run. So it adds a registry key to make sure it keeps running, which all sounds very pedestrian by today's kind of complexity we typically see in malware. But what's interesting, so I normally wouldn't bring this up, except for what's interesting is the FBI got a warrant, I guess, to go ahead and send commands to the infected computers. Now, that is a concerning line. Like how? And I read this trying to look for hey, they got the command and control server, and they use that command and control server to send out some script that cleans up the malware. But there's none of that in here. So there's kind of a big question of wait a minute, sorry, they did what? How did they do that? But that's fun. If you have ever worked for a small and now defunct startup that uses Google's OAuth, you may want to pay extra attention. Somebody found a flaw in Google's OAuth, which is so if you worked for a company that no longer exists and their domain was available, what was possible here is you could go ahead and register that domain and use that to basically re-access, tie that domain with Google back to its OAuth, and you may be able to get that tied to users' account, either old stuff on existing systems, or even possibly, I believe, attached to their current OAuth. So things like, here's a list of things that they went and checked and like, hey, we can get into Zoom and Slack and things like that. So I don't know what you do about that, but if you've ever worked for a small startup company and their domain name is no longer legitimate, or no longer owned by that company, you might go and take a look at that. If you're using Office 365 or M365 admin, they again are wonderful CISA organization here in the US, went ahead and kind of wrote a suggestion for how you might expand your cloud logs. And I haven't actually read all of this, but they're just saying this is all a best practice to prepare for inevitably getting hacked. And so what this is like, hey, here's the logs we suggest you go ahead and enable and configure so that if an incident ever arises, we will have the data. So just a best practice document, if you are an administrator of any of those services, might be worth looking through. If you are a user of a Fortinet firewall and you have not changed your password in the last year or so, you may want to go and do so. So like 3 years ago now, in 2023, there was a 0-day, and that was fixed and all of that jazz. But recently, a group has gone ahead and published a whole bunch of admin credentials for Fortinet firewalls that were garnered from that initial 0-day back in 2022. So again, if you change it in the last year or so, you're fine. But if you have a Fortinet firewall and you're thinking, I don't remember the last time I changed my admin login credentials for that, today might be the day to go look and consider doing that. So that's it for security news. I'm down to InTune. InTune really, it's been a quiet month, which is always the case in December, and rightfully so. It's never a big month. And really, the two big things in my mind, and you guys can disagree with me here, is really more deprecation, what's actually ended at the end of the year. So InTune ended support for Android device administration on devices with access to Google mobile services. And then this other one, they ended support for administrative templates when creating a new configuration profile. Now, to be clear, you can still import a custom ADMX, but that's just moved over to the setting catalog. So if you were doing it this way and that no longer appears for you, be aware the cheese has essentially moved on that. And then the last thing I'm going to end off before I head it off to Morris is this little beautiful thing from Michael Niehaus. He posted, hey, Microsoft just laid off the configuration team in India. And so I have a little bit of late breaking kind of inside baseball on that, which is, so to be clear, what Michael is talking about here is that in LinkedIn, a bunch of the people that he knew and some people that I knew are suddenly open to work. And that appears to be a significant chunk of what was the configuration manager team. If you didn't know, like 3 or 4 years ago, the configuration manager team was moved basically from the US, from the US to India. And Microsoft, to be clear, has a very large presence in India. These are Microsoft full-time employees. And it's a very large chunk org they have. I believe it's the second to the US in terms of the number of people that work there. And the kind of late breaking thing I got is it's not just that Microsoft has done their sort of yearly accounting layoffs and essentially that config manager group isn't the only one hit over there. That's the only one that I'm sort of tracking on LinkedIn. But some of that dev might have to move back. So yes, absolutely, there's some people that worked for Microsoft India that are no longer with the company, if you will, and a bunch of those were working on config manager. But there's a tendency to tie this to this is part of a strategy, and it's really not. It's really more tied to, well, Microsoft lays like a certain percentage of their workforce off almost every year, and they have to figure out who that is, and that's kind of how this is going down. So stay tuned. We'll see. What I'm hearing is maybe some US resources will end up getting picked up. And if they do, I'm sure I know who they are. Or sorry, I suspect I'll get to know who they are, and we'll get to have some fun conversations with those people. So all that to say is config manager dead. It's approaching deprecated in my mind. But this is not quite it. So, okay, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Morris. Thanks for joining us. And by us, I mean both Bash My PC as a company, but also this particular webinar.
Thanks,
Glad
Brian.
to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here also. I mean, I think it mentioned in the comments already, someone like Morris is rocking the Patch My PC swag. See, years of actually picking this stuff up at conferences is coming back in dividends now.
You didn't have to change your whole wardrobe, because I totally did.
No,
Like when I joined Patch My
no,
PC, I was like, well, I have to throw out literally half of my wardrobe that I can no longer wear. And then and it took me a couple weeks because I would attend meetings and once a webinar, and they're like, I don't think you can wear that anymore. She's like, oh.
Well, we purchased swag specifically for you, Brian. Do you think we had onesies before you joined? The answer
no.
was
That's actually kind of how it came out. I did say, well, I have a onesie. My favorite onesie was branded with my previous employer, and they're like, well, you can't show up on webinars. It was like, well, I'm going to show up on webinars with onesies. You decide if it's branded or not. Anyways.
Yeah, well, I mean, all I heard in my mind with that was they got onesies for you because you love onesies. So I'm expecting like an F1 team, like just
yeah,
Patch My PC.
Totally, man. That's how it works.
Excellent. So I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, this is only my my second week here, and yeah, I joined as senior cloud no, that's my old role, senior security architect. See, I'm still getting used to it. But yeah, so like basically helping out the company be as secure as they can, both in product and every application that we do internally. So it's fun, and from a lot of people kind of know me from the community side of things. I've seen a lot of comments like straight away in social media, kind of going, oh, "Okay, drivers are going to become a thing." Um, and yeah, um, it's kind of like haunted me from my entire MVP type area of career. But um, I released the thing, and then it haunts me to this day. But
Yeah.
I am working on a new version just because. Sure, it might as well. And probably what I'll do is I'll just briefly kind of share what I'm working on at the moment. I'm kind of trying to aim to have it out tomorrow, although it might be next week. And
well,
it'll be
Morris,
just
for the people that don't know what that is, like, can you give us a quick rundown?
Yeah. So we talked about Configuration Manager. A lot of people are still using it. Task sequence-driven deployments for operating systems, and one of the things that Config Manager always had a weak area in was applying drivers, right? If you were like that one company that just had, say, Dell or HP, and you could just throw all your driver packs in, you said automatically apply the driver, it was okay. And then you started mixing them up, and then you had drivers for HP applying onto a Dell and causing all kinds of blue screens and stuff like that. Other makes are available. And me, along with another MVP, former colleague of mine, Nikolai Anderson, we kind of came up with a solution which we called modern driver management. And that kind of started in about 2016, I think. And it was just a community solution. I remember driving home, and after releasing a version, my phone was just pinging all the way home. And I actually got like an email from Dell saying, we've had people contacting us asking how did I run your tool? And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I've been making little iterations to it. And the thing is, recently the whole thing was my like pet project that I kind of learned a lot of PowerShell in, being honest about it. And I had a look at it recently and went, oh my God, what was I thinking? Um, so
you finally reach that level of software development where you're like, what idiot wrote this? And then you look at the commit history, you're like, oh, that's me.
It kind of basically boiled down to that. And I kind of went, I really should rewrite this. And actually what happened then at the time was I had actually two OEMs reach out to me, Panasonic and Acer. And they were like, yeah, we want your tool to support our models because we have enterprises that want that and they're asking for it. So I said, sure,
Talk
yeah.
about a
And
compliment, though, like for the OEMs to reach out like that.
yeah, and look, I mean, they weren't the first. I mean, HP were brilliant, actually the start. And HP and Lenovo, I think Lenovo actually didn't even have an XML feed when we started this, and we kind of built that together. So the support from the OEMs has been brilliant. And yeah, and then like Acer in particular, they reached out then and said, look, we really want to get serious about doing this. We don't have anything at the present time. How do we do this? So I sat down with them and said, well, look, what we need is a feed that gives me the links to where to get the downloads from. And then we need to explain, okay, what kind of packages are coming in? Is it an XC or a cab file or whatever? And what other things need to happen, right? And they know that it's not going to be perfect overnight. So basically, they have drivers available, which is great. But for doing stuff like firmware updates, they need to think about things in a slightly different way. So I've given them some feedback, and they're going off with their developers at the moment, trying to get the firmware updates rewritten so that they can be a bit more silent and be automated. So that's good. So I started writing this new version, and yeah, I'll share a screen now, and I'll kind of show you what's going on. Other tools are available, but for this, I've just used the Sapient PowerShell Studio forever. I can do it in Visual Studio Code or something now, but it's just been easier. The version that people are most familiar with looks something like this, and it kind of just grew and grew and grew and bolted on with all these different tabs. And I kind of just looked at it and went, "Oh, it's very horrible mess type thing." So I decided then to rebuild all the forms and everything like that. So now it's looking a little bit slicker. I'll show you running now in a second as well, but you can see you've got the different options here, some of which are grayed out at the moment. InTune is going to feature. I'll have the InTune update done mid next month, and then that's going to create Win32 packages with driver packs, because I think, and like, please use the comment section here, or the chat section, just to reaffirm. But I used to be a config manager admin, and to me, the main thing that in Intune at the moment, we can get drivers, right? We can just download them from Windows Update, and for the most part, that works fine. But if you've been in organizations where it's caused a problem, what you really want to get back is, I have a config manager style driver pack that I certify as the admin. I deploy it in a few machines, it works. I'm gonna just leave it there, and then I'm gonna get the next one, and I'm gonna certify it in a few machines, and I'll change it manually. Okay, or like a kind of a ring approach. And I think Intune admins kind of want that as well, and especially anyone that's moved from config manager, they want to bring that with them. So so that's basically what I'm doing, creating Win32 packages. And for HP, it's actually using the HP CMSL. So it's like building the latest driver pack of the day that you build a driver pack, rather than being the SCCM one. Because again, people who are asking for that, and HP themselves kind of want to move to that approach. So that module's all done. That works fine. And then there's these different forms. I kind of put it out into different pop-up forms now. So probably what I'll do is I'll actually show you running. Give me 1 second. Where's my window gone?
I will say, Morris, in the chat, Gary
Hmm.
does make a good point for you should probably rename the tool to modern driver management with the Intune new features.
Modern, but Intune. No,
Modern
yeah,
squared? I don't know.
and I'm going to still a little sticker on it as well, like your drivers are patched, certified, right? So one thing I actually did do.
Cyber secure. That's what you're going
Yep,
to do.
cyber secure. Yep.
USA
Yeah.
cyber secure.
For every patch you upload into, Morris will like send you a sticker in the mail.
Oh dear God, what have we agreed to? All right. So one thing I did do actually yesterday, I updated the apply driver package script just so it has 24H2. Completely forgot about it, so it's in there now. Here's the example of the XML that I'm putting together with Acer at the moment. And I mean, Acer to me are a little bit of an unknown in the enterprise market. They kind of they want to get serious about this. And so what they typically do when we do work with an OEM is they send out sample devices, and I kind of just get them, tear them down, and figure out what's the thing I need to match and everything like that. And like, I literally got a sample device, and you think that like, this is a test device. It actually has a warning underneath it saying it hasn't meeting all regulatory approvals. and it is a test unit. That's how new this machine is. So I'm testing on the latest hardware at the moment. But here we have the old version running. So it kind of did its job. It didn't really break until the OEMs maybe broke something, typically something with an XML feed or something like that. But if I show you what the new one looks like, it's here. It does things slightly differently now as well. So previously, it used to output everything into like an XML file for settings and everything like that, and that kind of, I think, broke once or twice. So now it's using the good old registry, so it puts all your settings in there, and that way you can kind of go in here and go save configuration. You can take it somewhere else and load configuration. It just imports all the registry stuff. When you load it up as well, previously Dell only support Windows 11. They don't do the individual builds. So you kind of had to check just Windows 11, then you could just pick Dell. I thought it was a bit silly. So I redesigned it now as well. So if you pick Dell here, for instance, it will determine, okay, it's Dell. I'm just going to use Windows 11. I'm not going to care about the build. And of course, you can do multi-select. So you can just go and select whatever vendors you want the whole way through it, and it will just do its thing. You can reset it. Okay, these all load dynamically from the registry when it starts up. All your settings are kind of all in here now, so you can connect to Config Manager. You can look at your package distribution. You can manage your packages. You get package settings there about the compression and cleanup options and where you're putting the drivers, etc. And then you have some common options as well, where you actually want to store the temporary downloads. So then, once you click on Build Package, it opens another window, and don't worry about my testing at the moment. The overall progress minus 21 whatever percent. It's just starting the job there at the moment. I have to get that zeroed out, but it's going to show the overall progress here and then the download progress as well. So that, and this is fully movable. So the old version as well, once you started the tool running, it kind of just went off and did its thing. And if it got broken halfway in between, it will just kind of like fall over and stop. This you can click abort and it'll go and it'll stop the background processes that are running. And of course, you have dark mode as
Best
well.
feature. Best feature, Morris.
Best
Love
feature,
it.
yeah. I thought people would love it for dark mode. Um, so this is what I'm working at the moment. And ultimately, when the job runs, it kind of gives you something similar to what you would have seen in the past. So when we go in here, um, we have packages, and then we have driver packages, and then for this one, we have an Acer package, which I created earlier. And probably the one thing that I would say, which is a lot different this time, is the UI is built completely separate to the underlying module. So there's a module now. So if you just wanted to call this all command line, you can absolutely do it. And that's what it's doing. So the UI is basically doing background tasks for everything that you do. So when you click on start the run job, it will go off and fire a background task to do that. And then it's just monitoring the progress in the registry. So that's how it's put together. I'm going to put it up on the MS Endpoint Manager blog when it's ready for testing. And you can give me some feedback, but I'm hoping that this will be a little easier. And then when I do the InTune one, I think that's going to help out a lot. And I have a lot of ideas, just time and effort, because this is all done in my own time, by the way. Um, and I'll probably like drop a question mark like, do you think we should do driver patching as patch my PC? I'm just going to drop that question, right? And someone will shoot me down, but hey, look, I'm just going to ask the question anyway.
I'm seeing a lot of no's in the chat right now.
Yeah, loads of no's. No, everyone's
Yep.
saying really bad
All
ideas.
no's.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, there
Okay.
was a nah right there, and a little different than no, but There was one question in here I saw, Morris. And I think you already like kind of showed it, but he said, hate to ask this, but will the new version do custom package creation like the old version? I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, it will do. Yeah. So on this one, okay. So hold on. Did I remove that? Okay. Yes will be the answer. I will.
We're gonna
I
push it
will
back to
put.
February now, but yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think I just forgot to bring that over. I think it is on the actions. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I've got Zoom in the way. I have the patch
Yeah.
driver package. No, but I'll throw it in. It's really simple to do. There's one other question. Is MDT still an option in the new version of that? Unfortunately, no, because MDT is deprecated now anyway, and I need to draw the line somewhere. So yeah, so it's no longer an option. And in fact, the other thing I forgot to do was on the platform. There's currently two platforms in there, but I'm going to add back in the download only as well. So if you just want it to download the driver, it'll happily do that.
I see there's another one that says, will BIOS updates always be around 1 month behind due to the OEM and the XML? I think this is just more of the fact that like Dell, as an example, has two separate catalogs, the consumer one versus enterprise. I think that's the answer, but
Yeah, you're relying on the catalog. So with HP, because I'm using the CMSL, it will basically go and grab whatever the latest is that they have, right? Absolutely on that day. But others are just doing catalogs that they update once a month, and that's why it can be at times slightly out of date.
yeah, I know Jason also pointed out in the chat, and I want to reiterate, you should always delay BIOS updates, especially with Dell. They do have a tendency to completely break BitLocker. So I'm sure if you push them out right away, you've had plenty of support cases for that. But
They're not the only guilty ones, though, Jake. So yeah, we won't whip them too hard on it.
So two others that I said. One asked about print drivers, and I'm going to guess that's really hard because there's no data feed for it, right? I mean,
what
this
you
is
already have HP in the OEM selection. We're set.
yeah, but I don't think they publish print
Hmm.
drivers
No,
there.
they don't. I don't think.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean for printer drivers, really you're looking at like universal print drivers for
Right.
the main.
So PCL
Um,
5 and 6. Otherwise, we'd have Zebra
yeah.
in that selection list and every known vendor.
And then there was another one talking about how the EXE for 724. I know you've addressed this before. Got flagged for something by antivirus scanners or whatnot. I'm trying to remember
Oh
what that
yeah.
was.
Yeah, so what happened was basically someone like so I this whole thing is just one big PowerShell script. It's wrapped as an exe to make it be easy for people just to click on it and it runs, right?
Mhm.
But people decided to wrap it with a keygen generator for it. Because obviously I actually charge for it. And I really should have, but it's kind of too late now.
In
Um,
retrospect, man, that
yeah.
was an idea.
But yeah, they included a key generator, and heaven forbid the key generator had malware in it. And then all of a sudden, I started getting notifications saying that it was blocked. So yeah, on look, unfortunately, yeah, that is what it is. I might look at signing it with a certificate as well. But for now, I'm just going to put this version out there. And the download function on it actually uses curl as well. So it's using a different third party executable to download the content, which seems to work out a bit better. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's my progress.
the question, and the question, like there was kind of a follow up there, like, will the new version? I mean, the way you're doing the new version is that, yeah, like that should avoid that whole problem or not? I guess not really.
Um,
If somebody goes and wraps it and gets you flagged, like there's nothing you can do about it.
no, I mean, yeah, signing it ultimately would be the best way of doing it. It's just a code signing cert, then it's going to cost me X amount, and I don't charge for it, and etc. So yeah, I mean, long term, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Uh, Maybe all the no's in the chat window would No one wants it, so we shouldn't do it. So maybe I'll just buy a signing certificate.
Well, there was
I
one
can't
in the
promise an answer.
Q&A that just
Okay.
came through, and Morris kind of
Oh,
answered it, but I want to kind of highlight it. And it was, do you intend to have known models populated by InTune as well?
Yeah. Okay. I I answered it, and then I originally read it as known models as well. I thought like the known model support. Yeah. In Intune, a little bit difficult because of the slightly limited hardware inventory that you get out of Graph from the devices. So I'm going to play around with it for sure, but I can't guarantee because, like in Config Manager, you could reach into the database and you could get the baseboard values. Okay, and I know now, it is possible to get some of those values out now in Intune, but it's still early days, so I'll work on it.
I'm going to throw, this is not a question. I'm going to throw this into the chat. Something I just literally, I should have brought up. And this is a complete left turn from drivers, is if the new version of Outlook that's getting rolled out, if you want to block that, there was some questions about that. Sorry, not in this webinar, but previous people were talking about like, wait a minute, am I going to have the new Outlook thrust upon me? And Microsoft updated the docs recently to be like, here's how you block it. So if anybody here was concerned about, does not want the new Outlook, I cast no aspersions on those that do or do not. There's documentation. I just put the link in the chat there for blocking that. Okay, well then I think we're going to call it a day right on 12 o'clock. I don't think this has ever happened where right on the nose. So want to thank everyone for joining. Spend another exact hour wasted of your life. Enjoy the rest of dry January, or whatever, or watching your New Year's resolutions crumble to dust like they are wont to do. And we will see you in February. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for just outing where they live. Jordan would be super happy
Or
for the OSINT
doxing.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
What city did you
last
say it
four-
was again, Brian?
Yeah, last four digits of the social security number, please.
Actually, I only need the first 5. I've already
Oh,
got the
really?
last
Okay.
4.